Welcome back to the Civil Rights Lawyer channel. I'm about to show you footage of parole officers caught on video stealing cash from inside a house that they are otherwise lawfully searching as law enforcement officers. Is that a civil rights violation? Can they be sued? If so, can they get qualified immunity? And just in general, if police officers steal something from you, does that violate your federal constitutional rights? On November 16, 2022, in Greece, New York, Shannon Carpenter and her boyfriend John Granberry were getting ready for the day when there was a knock at the door shortly after 8 a.m. At the door were 6 state parole officers who announced that they were there to search the house. Now, Granberry was on parole after serving prison time for criminal possession of a weapon conviction, as they call it in New York, or as we would call it in other states and free states, freedom. 4 officers entered the house. Carpenter switched on a phone-activated web camera aimed at the bed in the closet. The camera recorded video of parole officers searching the house, eventually finding $6,000 in cash that was kept in a pink pair of Timberland boots. Here's what happened. Following the discovery of the items around 9:30 a.m., one of the parole officers, identified by Carpenter as Doris Hernandez, appears on the video to be typing a message on her phone, and she hands the phone to her colleague, unidentified male officer. He glances at it and he hands it back to her, and they whisper inaudibly. The male officer then peeps out the door before turning back to Hernandez. "We can share the money," he said. "You're right," Hernandez replied, pointing a finger gun at the other officer. "As long as there's enough money to go around," he said.
Don't worry, we can share the money while the person first. You don't have to think. No, as long as there's enough money to go around. I think it's a couple of horror. Come on. Crazy? What is it? Crazy? What is it that you do? I don't know.
So the incident has since become the basis for a pending lawsuit brought by Carpenter and, according to the Greece Police Department, an investigation by the New York State Police. Parole Officer Hernandez has since been suspended with pay, according to the state of New York. Meanwhile, the search put this guy Granberry back in prison or jail. He's being held on violating parole for possession of a weapon, a scale, and drugs, according to authorities in New York. All right, sorry about that. I had to fast forward to the next day. If you saw from my last video, had some stuff come up yesterday, and that was the whole family court judge impeachment ordeal, the resignation, and the news that the two additional judges were charged. Back to this issue here. Now, one important thing to understand is that when you're talking about parolees and or probationers, they have different Fourth Amendment protections than the rest of us do. Because, for instance, parolees, they're supposed to be in prison, so they're allowed to be out of prison, but they have reduced expectations of privacy. They have reduced rights. Probation officers or parole officers can come and search their homes, for instance, based on something less than having a warrant or probable cause. In situations like this, it's almost going to be impossible to challenge the validity of the underlying search. But what happens here where you have a valid search or a justified search, but the police officer or the probation officer or the parole officer ends up stealing items out of the house that otherwise could have been lawfully seized pursuant to the law. I think there probably is a Fourth Amendment violation there, and there's not a whole lot of law on it. I think it's one of those qualified immunity issues. So there have been a couple cases where police officers otherwise lawfully searching a house, they stole stuff, and then they asserted qualified immunity. The most famous of those cases was from 2019, the case of Jessup versus Fresno. This was out of the Ninth Circuit, and that's when the police officers in Fresno, California, stole more than $225,000 while executing a search warrant. And the Ninth Circuit said that they could not be sued, or they could not be liable for money damages under Section 1983 because of qualified immunity. And it was an absolute, really disgrace of a decision. But the reasoning was this: to get past qualified immunity, you have to show that there's some prior case that's close enough to it to clearly establish that that's a Fourth Amendment violation. And they did say this: we recognize that the allegation of any theft by police officers, most certainly the theft of over $225,000, is deeply disturbing. Whether that conduct violates the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures, however, would not be clear to a reasonable officer. I mean, whatever. But sadly, the Supreme Court of the United States later declined to hear that case. So that is the law. As of now, there are no Second Circuit opinions where this situation occurred that have even cited that Jessup case. So there was a Fourth Circuit opinion unpublished where I am, the 2004 case of Moms Inc. versus Willman. And as far as I can tell, with my rudimentary legal research skills, that's the only prior federal circuit court case that really addresses this issue of whether it's a Fourth Amendment violation for law enforcement officers to steal items that are otherwise lawfully confiscated during a search. And you might also check out I'll put a link to it, speaking of parole officers, we recently filed a lawsuit alleging sexual abuse, sexual assault by parole officers against the parolees they're charged with supervising. Well, we just filed another one. Really deeply disturbing stuff happening in the Parkersburg, West Virginia area. There's been some federal prosecutions ongoing of parole officers up there who engaged in misconduct, and we're handling several of those cases. So I'll put some information up on the blog about that if you're interested in that. So, as always, thanks for watching. If you like looking at these sorts of things and going over what your constitutional rights are, qualified immunity issues, things like that, make sure to subscribe and follow along because there's plenty of content out there. Remember, freedom is scary. Deal with it. I'll see you next time.